pretty much all of our major South County cities represented, which is great. We have City of Salinas, Monterey, and Seaside joining us as well. And we have, I'll kind of highlight here, 3 agencies serving the entire county. We have Central Coast Energy Services, Salvation Army, and Goodwill Central Coast. So the 3 of those will be really serving the whole county. So that's just a good thing for everyone to know and be aware of. We also have the North Monterey County Recreation and Park District, and we also joining us soon is going to be the Castroville Coalition, who will be serving the North County area. And then finally, we have our 2 colleges, Monterey Peninsula College and Hartnell College, who will be serving their students. I know Hartnell is also serving faculty. So welcome everyone, and it's great to have you. I'm just going to quickly kind of go over the flow of the program. I know many of you are familiar with this because you've been to the Bidders Conference or you've done this program with us before, but there are a few new things. So the process kind of how the resident would apply to the program, this kind of just breaks it down in a visual way. The residents can really get into the application process in 3 different ways. They have 3 access points. So one is through 211, as we all know, calling and being screened in our software through a 211 call specialist. The second is through our website, which is not up yet, but we're hoping will be very soon. An online survey where they can fill out their application online and actually upload documents directly there. Pick a referral to be referred to one of you, where you will actually receive their materials. So that's a second way to apply that we did not have last year, but it will give us an option for those who have internet access and are able to do that. They'll take a little bit of relief or a little bit of pressure off of the 211 call center specialist. So we're looking forward to that being up and running. And we have our 2 websites here, mcrenthelp.com and ayudaderento.com, which are both purchased by us and will be available for easy access to that online application. And then of course, the third access point is to apply with an agency. And we obviously know that many of you have existing clients who you will be referring to this program. And you're all obviously always welcome to refer them to the online survey, but you're also welcome to screen them yourself for those who don't have access to the online survey. You can just walk them right through either on the phone or in person, the survey on the Smart Referral Network to check for their eligibility and just to collect their contact information. So we're going to get into how to do that a little bit later. But once the residents have filled out the survey and been deemed eligible, they're referred to a participating agency, as you can see here. And then the agency then collects their documentation, verifies that documentation, and issues payment to either their landlord or their utility company. Now, we've talked about this before, but landlords can only receive 80% of the total amount owed, which is mandated by the state. So that is one thing we'll also get into in a little more detail later, but that's just also something to be aware of. So all of you have received your grant agreements, and you may have noticed that there are 2 funding sources for this program. The SB 91 is the state source funding of $15,391,449,000, which we received. And here's a little bit of background information on SB 91, and it appropriates state rental assistance and provides new protections for tenants as well. So this, and we also have the U.S. Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Program funding of almost $13 million, which is coming from the federal government. And each of these does have to be reported on separately by us. So We will have 2 funding sources for you to choose from when you start entering clients into the system. And we do have different spending deadlines for these 2 as well, which we'll get into a little bit more later. But I did just want to let you know these are both separate funding sources, and each of you has gotten approximately 55% of your funding has come from the US Treasury, and approximately 45% has come from SB 91 state funding. So for those of you who were a part of our program last year, or who were aware of our program last year, there are some things that are new. One I already mentioned, which is a public-facing application, which will be available linked from our website and also at these two domain names that we purchased. The second thing is our media strategy. So one thing that we did notice on a lot of our applications that we received, there was media budgeted in, which was great. We really want to make sure that we are standardizing the information that's going out into the community about this program. So we are currently working on some messaging that we will provide to all of you to share with your networks and with your clients. We're also going to be bringing in the assistance probably of an outside media firm in order to get everything squared away and make sure that everything really is centralized. So what we'd ask right now is that you really defer to us for any media materials that you might want to advertise this program. So that's a little bit of a new thing that we're doing this year. I mentioned before the 20% landlord forgiveness. Landlords do have to forgive 20% of their rent to participate in this program, and I will go into more detail about that in just a minute. We also have some different reporting requirements this year. We are going to require that you report in the Smart Referral Network, and we're not going to accept any reports coming from outside of the SRN. We're going to reimburse each month based on what we see in the SRN, because that's really where we want our data to be. That's using this network ensures that duplication of benefits doesn't occur. It ensures that 2 agencies aren't helping the same customer, and it ensures that everyone's kind of following the same standardized process. So for reporting, we are going to ask that you only use the SRN to report your spending for each month. And the last thing is we are going to train you on making smart referrals. This is really important because we have a really great opportunity this year to provide all of the clients that we're assisting really with options to be referred to other services that are offered in the county. And through our Smart Referral Network, we can do that because we have several programs, health and human service programs, that are registered in the Smart Referral Network that with just an extra click, you're able to refer that client to that program. So we're going to really ask that you make an effort to ask your clients what other sorts of resources they might need, and try to take full advantage of the software that we're using and make those smart referrals. So let's talk about eligibility. Some things have changed since the last time that we presented about this program. We presented at the Bidders Conference, and there was a little bit of confusion at the time about what was expected from the state and the federal government. So hopefully we'll be able to clear some of those questions up now. We obviously the income level requirement is the same. Residents do have to fall below 80% AMI to qualify for this program. Residents who have lost income, employment, or incurred significant costs due to COVID-19 are eligible for this program. And essentially what we learned from the state is that this is not restricted to just people who have lost income or employment. Really anybody who has had to spend a significant amount of money because of COVID, whether that's purchasing a workspace to be able to work from home, or being sick and not being able to work for a significant period of time, or having to care for a family member and being unable to work. Any of these kind of situations can apply, and the state has urged us to apply this statement as broadly as you can. So that's the definition that I have for that for now. Obviously only Monterey County residents qualify. Undocumented residents do qualify. We do not collect information about status. We do not collect social security number, and we do not require any documents that would be difficult to obtain if you are not undocumented. Residents without a lease qualify. You do not need to provide a lease for this program. We have a landlord letter that can take the place of a lease. And an additional thing is like a rent due notice or a bill could also take the place of a lease. So that is not a requirement of this program. Residents who benefited from last year's program or from the Emergency Food and Shelter or EFSP program do qualify for this. Even if they, we helped them last year at the full 3,000 mark, they can still benefit from this program. And so then we have a couple of groups of folks who are not eligible. We do not pay mortgage assistance, and and unfortunately Housing Choice Section 8 voucher holders are not eligible for this program. Just want to stop and see if there's any major questions so far. Requirements the same for both funding pools? Yes, they are the same. Just different.
Yeah, there's a question.
Sorry,
yeah,
what?
There's a question. There's a question. Another question about the duplication. That if reporting doesn't occur daily, could there be duplication? And I think you'll get to some of this when we show the demo.
Yeah, I mean, so duplication. We actually just we're finishing up our fraud policy. So if duplication does occur, there's a policy and procedure to follow there. So we can go more into detail about that later. Linda, you asked about Tri-County residents. They really just have to be a resident of this county. They can't be a resident of Santa Cruz or any other county. So for documentation, we have two lists here. One is what they must provide, and one is what they cannot be required to provide. And that's really important because we don't want to turn anyone away who is eligible for the program. So clients must provide a verification of their income. And luckily, since the last time we presented about this program, the state has told us that attestation is acceptable for this. So we do have an attestation form that we're going to provide all of you with. If the client cannot provide pay stubs, tax return checks, anything like that, they can attest to their income by filling out the attestation form, which we have in both Spanish and English. The second is verification of COVID impact. So they do have to show either, an unemployment award letter or a letter from their employer showing that their hours were decreased, or just a proof of their payments going down in the form of pay stubs. They do have to show verification of that financial impact. Third thing is photo ID, and we also accept non-US photo ID. And then if applicable, proof of housing instability. So if they have any eviction notices or past due rent notices, this will prioritize the client for assistance, and they should provide that as well. From the landlord, we need their W-9, and this is for those of you who are paying to have a payment record for your taxes, and also they must sign a landlord form, which in which they will attest that they will accept 80% as full payment and forgive the additional 20%. So collecting those two together is really important. And then The seventh thing on the list here is just verification of monthly rent. This could be this could be proof of the landlord letter that I mentioned before. It could be a lease, it could be a rent bill, for example. And then of course, if the client is applying for utility assistance, they would have to provide a utility bill or utility bills. We cannot require clients to provide a social security number. We don't collect any information on legal status. We cannot require that they provide us a lease agreement. That's what the landlord letter is for. We do not require US ID. Any government photo ID is acceptable. And we cannot require them to provide any other documents other than those that are listed here. This is really important. We really don't want clients to be turned away who are eligible. I'm just gonna check for questions again.
Yeah, Kelly, I can read you the questions in the chat.
Perfect.
One was that if a resident that was unemployed at the beginning of COVID and continues to struggle to find employment, are they eligible?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And I put the spending period is from March 18th, 2020 to March 31st, 2021.
Yeah, and Jackie asked, is the form standardized? I'm not sure what you mean, but we have forms that we'll send to all of you that you can just fill in the client's information, have them sign. So you don't have to provide any of these forms that I'm referencing. We'll provide all of them for you in English and Spanish.
The COVID impact verification is I think that's just a question that we ask, right, Kelly? In terms
yeah,
of
so if they can provide a proof, then we do have to accept that, or we do have to take that, but they can also attest to that. And Steve is asking if they provide proof of impact from COVID, do they still need to have proof they are behind on rent? Yeah, so if you're going to be paying rental arrears, they do have to provide some sort of either a landlord letter, like I said, or saying they owe this month much, or the bills past due rent notices. Grant is asking, how do we verify the rent amount without a lease agreement? So that's what the landlord letter is for. It's attesting from both the client and the landlord that this is how much they owe and this is how much they're paying per month. So that's the best we can do. Obviously, like a rent bill would also be acceptable, but that's really the best we can do at this point. Does the letter need to specifically say due to COVID? No, I mean, I think if it's during the time of COVID and their hours were reduced, I think that we can deduce that that probably counts. Okay, so spending limitations. How much can you spend on each client? You can spend no more than 12 months of assistance per household, and that can be 12 months of back rent and utility bills. So if you pay 12 months, 12 of those have to be back rent, and they're paid at 80%. This is where it gets a little bit confusing. Future rent, you can pay up to 3 months. So let's say you have a client come in now, they owe maybe April and March rent, for example, and they're asking to pay future rent. You can pay April, May, June, but you can only pay those future 3 months at 25%. So again, these are all state guidelines. These aren't guidelines imposed by United Way, but these are requirements by either the state or the federal government or both. So for future rent, you can give up to 3 months, but only at 25%, whereas the back rent can be paid at 80%. The past due back rent, and this is something that we just kind of found out. So we do have to clarify this probably, but it looks like past due or back rent may only go through March of 2021. So anything that was due before this month could qualify for that. I mentioned already future rent can only be paid at 25%. And there is no dollar limit on the monthly amount beyond those percentages limits that I mentioned.
Kelly, there's a clarification from Katie that the future rent can only be paid 1 month at a time. So they wouldn't be able to get, you know, May, June, and July.
Right, but if they came for future rent, they can potentially come back in the future and get another month of future rent. Okay, landlords. So this is the really big concern that most folks have, understandably, about this program. As per state guidelines, they must accept 80% of rent. That does not mean the client has to provide 20%. That does not mean that the client has to fundraise 20%, or that we have to fundraise the 20%, or we can sub in 20% from another funding source. This really just means that we can only pay the landlord 80%, and that they have to sign a form accepting that as full payment. So our form has a stipulation that they need to accept that as full payment, will not charge late fees, will not threaten eviction, will not, you know, charge that extra 20% at a future date. They have to accept it as full payment. So should a landlord sign that form, great, they can receive 80%. If a landlord refuses to comply and refuses to give you any information, you can pay the client directly 25%. It's not ideal, but it is another option. And you basically have to give the landlord 21 days to respond and cooperate with you and sign the form. And then in that case, if not, 25 can be paid to the client. In terms of other strategies, we also are going to be working with our team to create a media strategy to reach out to landlords and spread information about the program and make sure that we're connecting with them and getting the information out to as many property owners as we can to both validate the program, spread awareness about the program, and you know, help people to understand that this is happening. It's a real program. So we're hoping that will help. Any other questions?
There was a question about would a letter from an employer be good to attest loss of income? And I said that it would.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Someone asked, does the landlord have to sign anything for the 25% payment? No, they do not. They do have to provide you with a W-9 though to pay them. Unless they're not going to provide you with it, then if they don't respond in 21 days, you can pay the tenant directly. But they only need to sign the form if you want them to accept the 80% for background.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if the landlord refuses to cooperate, we can only pay 25% of 1 month. Is that correct? Or can we pay 25% of 3 months?
Well, if it's back rent, you can pay 25% of as many months as they owe.
But if the
Up to
landlord
12
refuses
months.
to cooperate, we're taking the applicant's word, right? If they refuse to.
Yeah.
So you're okay with that?
Yeah, and that's I mean, as long as their documentation has been verified and you've kind of gone through the process with them, then yeah.
Okay, so just to clarify, so if there's no 12 months back due, we can't, it's just a single month for 25% of the single month.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so we've kind of been pushing the March 15th soft launch or start date with all of you. We are at this point, you know, just a few days out from that, obviously. I do want to mention that, you know, the state doesn't require that we start on March 15th, but we want to get up and running as soon as possible because we have a lot of money to spend, and yeah, the sooner the better. So, but that is really the soft launch date. And the program is actually going through the Board of Supervisors the following morning on March 16th. So that's kind of more the official, when the program is going to have the official go ahead. We, as kind of outlined in the grant agreement, we do want to do a check-in with each of our grantees after 60 days to make sure that spending is moving along at a good pace. 15% I think is what we're kind of shooting for at that 60-day check-in. Getting close to that is probably okay. And we also provided with for each of you a kind of idea of how much you need to spend monthly in order to reach the deadline. State spending deadline. So they've officially said that 100% should be spent by August 1st and 60% by June 1st. But my understanding is that if these deadlines aren't reached exactly, they won't necessarily take the funding, but that's really what we're aiming for, just because that's what's in writing and that's what we understand from the state. Federal spending 65% by October 1st and 100% by the end of the year. So those are the two kind of spending deadlines. So as you can see, the pressure is really on, and we're just going to do the best that we can in getting the money spent and trying to stick with the monthly goals that we set out. So any questions about spending deadlines? Okay. Well,
Not a question, but just a comment.
sure.
If the program is set to start on March 16th, I think we have, we're on a time crunch to get all this funding expended, and the sooner you can provide the forms that the United Way is wanting the network to use, we do need to be able to view them as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, we can get those out to you today. They're pretty much ready to go. So yeah, we can send those out to you today after this training. I think that would be the best way to go. So one thing I wanted to show you before we jump into the SRN training is that we do have a manual, and we'll provide you with these slides so you can have access to this. It's a Google Doc. Can everyone see it? And it has kind of the basic, what we're about to go over. It's still under construction. I'm gonna try to add more to it this weekend. But this is just, screenshots and instructions for how to do certain things.
So
Are
Kelly,
there any other
there's
questions
a
before we get
question.
started?
There's a question in the chat about how to assess the legitimate need for rent assistance, and then what if a landlord is a family member and they're trying to cheat the system. And I know we're developing a fraud sort of contingency plan that helps us sort of, what to do if certain things happen, and we can go over that. I think if the landlord is a family member, they're still eligible. Is that right, Kelly?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything written in the state or federal requirements about that. But I know last year we did ask for everyone to verify that there's no family relationship between the landlord and the tenant. That's not technically a requirement this year. But that's why I think, like, really, to some extent it is up to your discretion and being able to kind of identify that kind of situation. I think in any program like this, there could be someone that tries to cheat the system, but we also know that there's a really legitimate need in the community, and I think that's the important thing here, and also just to be really using our best judgment and to sitting down and having conversations with the clients, not just taking their paperwork off of the online application and just going with it, really like having a conversation with them and assessing their need. I think that's really important. There's another question. If there are multiple families that rent a home, one rents the garage, one rents a room, do they need to apply individually or as one? They can actually apply separately, as long as, you know, the landlord is attesting that they are two different households who live at the same address maybe, and are both paying rent to that landlord. They can apply individually. So it's per household, it's per household as you would kind of define it on a tax form, not so much household like within the same building, if that makes sense. Any other questions? All right. So, give me 1 second here to just bring up the SRN. Okay. So, I am actually using, I'm not using our demo site today. I'm using the actual Smart Referral Network because the demo is actually under construction, putting in the new surveys for everyone. So I'll give you, after we're done, I'll show you what the new updated surveys are gonna look like. But for now, I'm just gonna go through the process with you on how to, you know, create a client, find an existing client, fill out the rent or utility assistance survey with those clients, how to refer them to an agency, including yourself, and how to respond to those referrals and make payment. So we'll also go over making smart referrals and looking at reporting as well. So for starters, one thing I really want to emphasize, because this was a really big point of confusion last year, when you receive a call from a client who says that they have been referred to your program, you should not assume that client is calling the right place. And that's just because, you know, people get phone numbers thrown around everywhere. So the first thing that you want to do when you get a call from a client is look in the system and see who they're actually referred to so that you can give that client the right information. And this is really important to prevent confusion for clients and also prevent unnecessary work for you and potentially for another agency. So the first thing you want to do is open up your smart referral software, click on surveys, rent and utility assistance clients. And this is where you find any client that has been entered in the system, either by the online application or by the 211 call center. So you can find someone. We're gonna look for me. So as you can see, I'm in here and I have filled out the rental assistance survey. It shows you when my file was created and when it was last updated. And it shows which agency I've been referred to. In this case, I've been referred to Central Coast Energy Services for assistance. So if you look up the client that's calling you and you see that, then you need to make sure that they're getting the information for Central Coast Energy Services and that they really understand that's the agency that they've been referred to and that they're going to work with. The other thing you can see here is the client's status, which will show whether or not they've received a payment already. So in this case, it's showing that Kelly has not received a payment. The status for this client is eligible. And in most cases, what you're going to see here, instead of United Way Worldwide funding, you're going to see ERAP funding, whether state or federal. So at this point, you'll based on just this one quick search, you now understand that Kelly has already applied for assistance. They've already been referred to Central Coast Energy Services, and they have not been paid yet. Now, if their status says approved, that most likely means that the client has already been paid by the agency, and at that point you can tell them, you know, we see that you've been paid already, so it looks like you've already benefited from this program, and then, you know, refer them to the appropriate place. So that's kind of where I really wanted to start. Finding clients is really important, and making sure that we're not creating duplicate files and, you know, creating a client that's already in the system. So if you do get an inquiry or you're recruiting a client from your own agency and you want to create a client, then that's a different story. So in that case, we want to click on surveys on the left-hand side and click on rent and utility assistance survey. So depending on, and right now this only has rental assistance and CalAm, it will also have a utility assistance survey. That's under construction right now. I'm hoping it's going to be done by the end of today. They're currently making some edits on it for me. So you want to select either rental assistance or utility assistance. Take survey. There are two options here. You can either select an existing client or you can create a client. So let's say that you are Central Coast Energy Services and you're going to help out Philly DeWolf. Uh-oh. There we are. Select the client, click confirm client, and at this point, it should autofill a few things. One's going to be the name, and one's going to be the date of birth. At this point, you can enter email address, phone number, what city that the person lives in. This question is really important. Have you lost your job or had your work hours reduced due to COVID-19? This is going to affect the client's eligibility. So you want to make sure that you know the real answer to this, either yes or no. Yes is going to make them eligible, of course. And then you want to give the reason why. So got laid off, for example. Household size, let's say 4. Can you provide a lease agreement? I don't think this question will be on the next survey, but we're just going to say yes for now. Were you behind? No. Some of these questions you won't see on the survey for the ERAP program, but most of them will be the same. And here's another one. Do you receive a Section 8 or Housing Choice voucher? If they reply yes on this, they will be ineligible. So just make sure that you get the correct answer there. And again, here, do you own or rent? Rent is the only answer that can be acceptable. We have a question here about what type of room they rent. This is just for data collection purposes. It won't affect their eligibility. Okay, at this point, after you put in the total that they need to pay and past and upcoming rent, okay. So because I've already applied, it's giving me this message, but this is actually a good learning moment because if you do fill out the survey for a client who has already applied, it will notify you of that, which is good. But normally what it would say is that I'm eligible, and it would give you a list of agencies to choose from. So I'm going to try to see if I can find that. I was just messing with it earlier to make sure, but I think if I try the other one. It's tough, I think.
Hey, Kelly,
Yeah,
I have it pulled up so I can show what it looks like.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
It worked for me earlier, but it's not wanting to work now.
So that if you're eligible, it should, you want to walk them through this, Kelly?
Yeah. Well, are you in the demo?
I'm in the demo. Should
Yeah,
not,
the
should I go-
demo's not working right now because it's under construction. That's why. So normally it would say you are eligible, ERAP federal and ERAP state, but it would also have a drop-down menu of agencies to choose from. And those agencies would be populated based on the client's location. So it would just give you an option of agencies that apply to that client. And for most of you, that won't be so much of an issue because you'll be referring to yourself. So you'd be choosing your own name, your own agency name off of the list. But in some cases, you might end up referring to another agency, and in that case, you would choose another agency's name. But then once you choose the agency that you want, whether that's your own agency or another, you would click send referral, and then the referral would be sent.
And then Kelly, the customer gets an email too, right? With a record of.
Yeah, so at this point, the customer gets an email saying that they have been qualified, and they'll give them the same list of documents in both English and Spanish, what they need to provide, as well as the agency's information that they've been referred to.
So there are a few questions in the chat that maybe we want to address before going on to the next. So one of them that I read was, I don't see a question. Is there any verification that the landlord is in fact a landlord? And I know that, if you're subleasing, then you may not be a landlord of record or, owner of a property. But do you have an answer to this question, Kelly?
Yeah, so I know there's a few ways you can check on this. One is by checking online, the assessor's office, right, Josh?
There is like a way to assess with the county assessor's office to see if their property is listed and that person is a landlord. And we can provide guidance on that process.
Yeah. If the homeowner, if someone's subleasing, then you're gonna have to get in touch with the landlord, I think. There's not, and just like get that information for, again, on the attestation form landlord letter that provides that person's information. And then somebody else asked, or Nina also asked, what about a homeowner that is renting out a room to a renter or part of the house? Yeah, that's fine. Again, they would just have to fill out the landlord letter, which kind of attests that the rental relationship exists and that it's this much per month. And then that's really both the client and the landlord attesting that this rental relationship exists. And you could again verify that that homeowner is in fact a homeowner.
How is the system identifying?
Yeah, it's name and birthday, which creates the unique identifier. Another question, is there a way to eliminate people who never submitted their paperwork they're in the system? Is there a way to eliminate them? My understanding is that most of those folks were declined in the system. So what we actually have done with that is we have allowed for declined clients to be reopened. And so in other words, if we do have one of those folks who applies again, you can actually reopen their file and continue with the process. Otherwise, they can stay in declined, and then they will not be at the top of the list or under the same tab for incoming referrals. They'll be under the declined tab, and they won't be kind of clogging up your inbox. So we did find a solution to that problem. Is there a field on SRN that lets us, and I'll show you that actually in a minute. Is there a field on SRN that lets us know or select the language spoken by the customer? I believe we are working that into the new survey, so there will be a question for that. With multiple agencies serving a jurisdiction or area, what criteria will be used by 211 to guide a referral to one service provider over another? It's a great question. For the most part, this year we do have I think only 3 agencies that are serving the entire county. So that choice is really going to be up to the client. I'm going to, because this question has made me realize, I think it's best in most cases if, like, for example, a client applies who lives in Greenfield for them to go to City of Greenfield, for example, first, just because it's going to be the easiest, most convenient for that client. But it's also up to the client. Like if a Greenfield customer says, I really don't want to work with the city, I would rather go to Goodwill, I mean, they can do that. So it's really up to this service provider. But one thing is that if we do see one agency that's getting a ton of referrals and is really overwhelmed, we can turn off referrals for that agency, and that would kind of redirect referrals to a different agency. So that is an option for us to kind of control the flow. And we did run into that a little bit last year, and that seemed like a good solution. Is a survey search entry required before the agency can assist anyone? Also, email address shouldn't be entry required. Not everyone has one. So it's not required. You can put none at none.com and that's fine. Is the search entry required before the agency can assist anyone? I would suggest yes. I mean, if you have, because we have so many clients in the system already from last year's program, I really suggest that you search for them before assisting, because we want to make sure that we're not creating duplicate files of clients. The system should prevent you from doing that, but even so, it's just the quickest and easiest way to make sure that customer is not in the system. And I would just really recommend that you do that before trying to create a new client file for someone you're assisting. And hopefully, I mean, hopefully most people will be applying online. You'll have plenty of referrals to work with and won't have to go through that part of the process anyways. Can one agency refer a client to another agency after accepting the client? Yes, thank you for this question. And I'm going to show you more about that now. So let me share my screen. So now I'm going to kind of go to the referrals portion. And this is the part I should mention that, like, everything I've showed you so far is mostly what we're going to see 211 call center specialists and other agencies who are not participating in the program doing. Some of you might be doing this if you are kind of marketing within your own client base, but for the most part, you're going to be responding to referrals and not so much entering people and entering clients in the system. So what you're going to do, how you're going to do that. So you actually have a referral inbox in the system that you can reference, and it's under the referrals button here. You click referrals and click on referrals and clients. And this is going to show you all referrals that have been made to your agency. So as you can see, right now, I'm not logged in as the United Way admin. I'm actually logged in as Central Coast Energy Services. And I have received a incoming referral from this client, Kelly DeWolf, who is eligible for rental assistance. And so this is what it's going to look like when you have incoming referrals in your inbox. It's going to show you the amount of referrals that you have. It's going to allow you to search by client name in this referrals inbox. And you can also kind of change how many are displaying, 10, 25, 50, 100, all on one page. So from here, one thing right off the bat that you're going to want to look at is this first line here after the client name. It's going to tell you here which program that the client is applying for. Keep in mind that clients do have to apply and be paid for rent and utility assistance in the system separately. And the reason for that is because we need to track, we want to track separately how many clients were paying rental assistance and how many for utility assistance, and that's just really so we can understand the need in our county and how much assistance we've provided to each in the program. So in this case, Kelly has applied to rental assistance and is eligible. This will obviously say ERAP, not county, but that's going to be updated hopefully today. It's going to say where the referral is coming from. So it could be from 211 call center, it could be from United Way in this case, could be from another agency. It'll also say how long this client has been waiting for. So in this case, this was made today, 0 days. The date it was sent, the client email and phone number for easy contact. And who sent the agent who sent the referral and how to contact that agent and their phone number. So that's a lot of really important information. Now, the first thing I want to show you is how to decline a client. If you decide to decline this client because you've been reaching out to them for weeks and they haven't been responding, you can decline them. Inadequate documentation or other, whatever you want it to be, send reason, they're going to go into decline referrals. Now, this is not forever. You can reopen it, and I'm going to do that right now. And all you have to do is click reopen, and it pops them right over back into the incoming referrals tab. So this is a really easy way to organize, because you will have clients that don't ever respond to you. So and that's really up to you to decide what that time frame will be, but we suggest like really keeping it moving and moving on to new clients, because you can always reopen them if they do eventually get back to you. So from here, you're going to obviously collect the documentation that's required for this client. The way that you do that is under upload files. Once they've provided you with the files, you're going to select the survey for which you're providing documentation. In this case, rental assistance. It's only going to show here the surveys that the client has already filled out. And so from here, you can choose files and upload those files from your computer. You want to upload all the files necessary for the client to this page. And once you've uploaded each file that you need, you can actually change the status. Now, something that's really important about changing the status of the client is that you can change the client to in process. And this is really important for clients, especially if they've applied online and you're determining that, you know, this is a client you're collecting from and you're working with actively. Changing them to in process will actually, it will notify them online that they need to provide documentation. So, so that's really important. Once you've collected all documentation, you can mark them as approved and save. And this is a very necessary step, and I'll show you why. Once the client has been approved, you can enter their payment info. And so you don't want to mark them as approved until you're ready to pay them and ready to enter that payment info. And if you don't mark them as approved, when you click complete, it won't bring this up. So make sure that you're marking them as approved. And again, this is all in the handbook, so don't worry so much about the details, but that is an important thing to remember. So here you enter the client address, landlord information. So this, excuse me, I've been talking so much. I need some water. Okay, so monthly rent amount. So this is how much they're paying each month. So like if it was 1,000, do 1,000. So this is due dates. Here you want to put the due dates of each payment. So if there's more than one, you're going to want to put that. Months covered with payment. So this is the number of months covered with the payment. This was a common point of confusion last year. You don't need to put which months because that's covered in due date. Just put the number of months. So let's say 3. Check numbers. If there's more than one check, put more than one check number. Otherwise, just put 1. And the date of payment. and then the total amount paid. So that's going to add up, you know, the monthly plus this total amount paid, 80%. There's something missing here. Oh, funding source. Why is that not here? I'm going to check in about that, but normally there would also be another field that says funding source, and you would choose either state or federal at that point. And that's really just up to you and your internal process, but we do have, you know what the spending deadlines are now, so that's really up to your discretion which clients are paid with federal and which are paid with state money. That normally will be here. I'm going to check in about that because the last time I checked it was here. So at that point, you're going to click complete, and at that point, the client will go from incoming to the accepted clients, or sorry, enrolled clients tab. There's a couple other tabs here. Outgoing is for anybody that you refer to a different agency, which you can do clicking on this button. So any clients that are going out will be shown here, and if they're accepted, that will be shown in the accepted clients. And that's also important for smart referrals, because if you do decide to send a smart referral, then that will show up in that area. So do we have questions about this process so far? Is there a document size limit? I believe there is, and I'll get back to you on what that is. But I don't know it off the top of my head. Josh, do you want to go over smart referrals now?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so I will stop sharing. And then we can do reports, and then I think that's everything.
So, Kelly, in your screen, did you show them after you saved it? It should give you the option to make a smart referral, right?
Yeah, but that part wasn't working, so.
So typically after you've processed. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, sorry.
So if after you've made the payment or you've done the intake, there's the opportunity to make a smart referral. And I think I showed you on the page where you know, after the intake there was it showed the kind of documents that they needed, and then there was a button that said click create smart referral. And then again, after you make a payment, you have the option to do that too. And so basically what you would do there is click that button, and that would take you to this. You would click on create referral, and that takes you to this page. And so from here, the client should auto-populate here, and so because you're with a client. If for some reason it doesn't, you would select the client and then find them in the select client page and confirm client. From here, you would ask them again, like, do you want a referral? And when you say, do you want a referral to other services, the purpose of this is like to provide longer term services that the client might need. So the rent assistance program, the utility assistance program, we're addressing immediate needs, but maybe we can address other needs or longer term needs that are represented in all the services in Monterey County. And so the Smart Referral Program was designed to help access folks to services in the county, and it uses the 211 information and referral database. And so the goal of it is to find a service that someone needs, to sort of cross-reference their demographic information with eligibility requirements for different services, and make a smart referral. And by smart, it's making a recommendation for referral for a service that would likely accept the client based on their eligibility. And so to do that, select the client, maybe choose their city, and then there's 3 ways to search that 211 information and referral database. You can search by sort of general search terms. You can search by a specific agency, or you can search by sort of common categories. And this is the best way to search because it just aligns better with the way information is stored in 211. So if we wanted to search, income and expenses, and then maybe money management and search, and then it sort of lists programs. And this is where you see that match between the eligibility and the demographic. And here for Barney Rubble, he was income eligible. But say you landed on the Prosperity platform, and you read about that it provides long-term planning, coaching to increase income, money management, and enrollment in other active referrals to other services. If that sounds good to you, and for all of you, I strongly recommend that program. You could then ask the person, do you want me to refer you to this program? And then that would you would click send referral, and it should say yes. So because this is in the demo site, it's not, but this is a yes, and it'll prioritize all the partners that are actually in the active referral network. And so I mentioned that that it searches the 211 database, and so it's going to search all the services in the database, but only about 24 of them are regular participants, which means they've signed an MOU with us and they've agreed to respond to those referrals. And I'll show you that list in a moment. So you would click send referral, and basically that's going to send an email to Linda saying like, hey, this is Josh from the United Way. I have a great client that would benefit from your program. Please log into the Smart Referral software and reach out to it, enroll the client in your services. Before it sends that email, you can add another email address. You could CC yourself. You could type in some anecdotal information, or you can type in the client's cell phone so they can get a record of that referral. And then you click send, and then Linda would get that email, and she would log in and go to the referrals and clients. And then her referral is going to look a little different than what Kelly just showed you. So instead of the upload file documents, she gets this type of referral, which basically has the client contact information here. And so she would outreach to the client, and when she's outreaching to them, she could click accept, which would send a message to the person sending the referral explaining that I'm working on enrolling the client in my services. And after, when she's done, she could click enroll, and then that sends a message back to you that the loop has been closed and the client is benefiting from her services. Again, she can decline if, for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're not eligible, or the service is out of resources, or she could forward the referral to another service. And so if there's another service that the client could benefit from, then she could make that recommendation on their behalf. And that's basically how that works. And we really are strongly, really want you all to make the effort to do that. I mentioned that there are a variety of services represented. And so this is the current partners that are actively using this. And so if you refer to Goodwill or to Cecil or to MCOE Head Start, all these services, they'll respond. And so we really try to create just a variety of services that might meet the needs of folks in our community. There are some nifty reporting features. If you want to be able to see how many referrals you've made for a period of time, you can see just sort of, well, actually, I don't want to show this one. So you can get a table that just shows sort of incoming and outgoing referrals, how many received, how many enrolled, how many declined. And you can export that to a CSV and get a lot more detailed information about the referral, like who sent it, to whom did they send it, what was the date, and some client level information as well. There are a lot of other features for this tool and the software where you could run client level reports to see how their individual referrals. And there's also an outcome measurement tool if you want to see what difference the services are making. Again, this is sort of going above and beyond, but if you're interested in kind of the economic mobility or the sort of social determinants of health, you can do a pre and post test for the client and sort of mark them and just create a report. and, maybe type in some anecdotal information. And if you do it over, take that test again several times, you can show some nice trends. If you're interested in really getting into the weeds and using this platform for, receiving referrals and documenting outcomes, let me know, and I could have a more detailed training with you on that. That's mostly what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Josh. And I'm also going to show right now just how to make a smart referral right when you are referring a client. So let me just, I took the time while he was explaining that to fill out the survey for Test DeWolf. So test should be eligible. Yep, perfect. So this is actually what it's going to look like. It's going to say you are eligible. It's just going to say ERAP instead. So from here, you select an agency. Right now, the only option is Central Coast Energy because our county funding is depleted, and I have this enabled. You select it, you click send referral, and it's sent. But at that point, when you send the referral, it's going to tell you, it's going to load, wait for it to send. Come on. There you go. Okay. At this point, you can just click right here, make a smart referral. So let's say like you're talking to the client and they're telling you that they need, they're mentioning that they need some other form of assistance that you know is available. You just click right there and it brings you right to the page with that person already filled in. And you already know where they live and that's already filled in. So all you have to do is find the program that they're looking for and go from there. So super easy. The other thing that I want to show you that I forgot to mention before is that once you enroll a client, enter their payment information, it's not like done from there. You can actually, you can actually go into enrolled and actually edit their payment info. So that's going to be found here. This isn't here because this is for the HEAP program, but I just wanted to let you know that that's a possibility. And I guess the only last thing is doing reports. So once you're actually going to make your monthly reports for us, you've entered all your clients and their payment, you're ready to go. You're just going to select rental assistance. You're going to select ERAP from this list. And there's going to be two reports. One's going to be for state, one's going to be for federal. Today we're using county funding as an example. Select your agency from the list and select your date range. So let's say you're doing a March report. Search response, and it's going to show you all of the information here, the amount of people who took the survey, those who were eligible, those who had an amount paid to them, and then you can export with one click, export a Excel spreadsheet, which you can then use to view and compare to your own internal information. But you don't actually need to send us that because we can actually go through this process on our end by ourselves. So this is just for you to know if you have maybe some inconsistencies between who you know that you've paid and who's in the system. Here's how you can compare with any internal spreadsheets or documentation you might have. You can compare with what's in the system by pulling a report for any date range. And are there any questions?
I have a question, Kelly.
Yeah.
So on the the smart referral software, there's a client button, and you can find clients there. But then on the surveys, there's a clients as well, and it looks like you can use both to find clients. Is that your understanding?
Great question. So
because
yeah, so it does look that way, but if you're searching for a rent and utility client, you really have to search for them under surveys, under rent and utility assistance clients. If you're not searching there, you're not going to find them because these clients this is like all of the smart referral clients in the system. This is all the rent and utility assistance clients in the system. They're different set of clients. There might be some overlap, you know, you might find some rent and utility assistance clients in there, and you're definitely going to find some smart referral clients in here, but if you're trying to find a rent and utility assistant client, this is where you want to look. Thank you for that question. It's a great clarification. And that's also why we changed the titles on these. Some of you might remember it was different before. So yeah, any other questions? When sending the report to you, here's where we get the information. Yeah, this is where you get the information for a report, but you actually don't need to send me a report because I'm going to pull a report of everyone's spending at the end of each month directly from SRN. All you need to do is make sure that all of your data for that month has been entered. So any payments that you've made, that's okay. It's a good thing to repeat. It's definitely worth repeating. Make sure that you enter your data in a timely manner because 2 reasons. One, it prevents duplication of benefits because the sooner you enter a client, the easier it is for other agencies to see that that client has already received assistance. And secondly, the quicker you report, the quicker you'll be reimbursed for that client's payment. So, yeah.
And to be clear, you know, there was a ton of information here, and our plan is to have, I think, weekly check-ins with everybody, you know, just to troubleshoot, you know, reiterate, and just walk you through it. I think for the first probably 6 or 8 weeks, we'll do it weekly. And then, you know, as we pick up stride a little bit less regularly, but we found that that was very helpful last year.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Josh, because I forgot. But so this says bi-weekly, but I think to get started, we're going to do weekly, and then maybe eventually we'll change it to bi-weekly. But we have a doodle poll here, another one. I know you've already all filled out a doodle poll, but here's another one. And just like let us know the best times for you to do like a weekly check-in. And then we can kind of plan maybe around that. Excuse me. And we're also going to do another training because not everyone was able to make it today. So if you feel like, oh my gosh, that was so much information and I don't want to read the manual, then feel free to come to the next one as well. I'll send the information to everyone. And if you ever want to meet with me kind of one-on-one and go over it, I'm happy to do that as well. We want to support you in as many ways as we can. So if you would like to set up a time to meet with me, I'm happy to do that. If you have a quick question, just email me, give me a call. I'm happy to answer quick questions. Also, we need some things from you. One is for those of you who don't have SRN accounts, we need to create SRN accounts for you. So after this meeting, for those of you who are going to be using the software, send me your name and your email address, and I will create you an account or a list of your agencies, folks who are going to be using them, and I will create accounts for all of them. And the other thing I will need from you, if I don't already have it from last year's program, is the primary contact phone number and email for your program. So what that means is the place where clients are going to be calling like crazy. So don't give like your personal cell phone, for example. All of you who, again, didn't participate last year and I don't already have that information, please provide me with a email address contact and a phone number contact. The phone number is required, the email is not. But if you have like an intake email that you're going to use, that would be great. Let me know that as well. And that will be included on your file in SRN. So I think that's everything. And I'll send out the grantee packet. Does anyone have any other questions? Oops, I just realized I sent that as a direct message instead of to everyone. Here we go.
Hi, Kelly. This is Julie with Central Coast Energy Services. And, you know, I keep bringing up the topic because I think it's very important in terms of identifying how the duplication check will be done. And, my biggest concern is that there's no limit to the, the benefits that we may grant. And at the end, it may result in, who reports first, right? Because at the point that we're reporting back in the SRN, that means that we've already created a check for a customer. And if we run into a duplication check, what happens next when, we've already issued a check for, I don't know, $10,000 to a customer? So starting with the scenario that a customer calls 211 and is requesting assistance, there's no agency that's being selected at that point, right? So the customer can initiate the process with us or with Goodwill, and it's whoever is getting that documentation in first and reporting.
No, so that's not correct. So when a client calls 211, they're going to go through that whole screening process that I showed you. They're going to fill out the whole survey. They're going to be referred to one of you at that point. Unless there's like a mistake in the system or something like that, there should not be any clients that call 211 that are not referred to an agency. So that's
And if one of you,
and if what so
and I was saying, if
yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
if one of your clients wants the benefit and you want to do the intake, that's why it's important to search, because if you search them, you can see that they were referred to another agency, and then that agency is responsible for processing them, and you could tell them go to Goodwill or go somewhere else, because that's where your referral has been sent.
And
I think it's the search function, it's at a customer name, there's always misspellings and differentiations, right? Somebody can come to me and say, my name's Joe, and then they go to somebody else and their name is Joseph. So just little things like that I think are very key in defining how is a duplication check done, because again, if there's multiple people in a household, somebody can go ahead and apply with Goodwill, and then the husband and then the wife comes to us and applies with us. It's the same household, just different customer name and different date of birth.
And that's why it's name and birthday and not just name, right? So when you search for a client, if there are multiple clients of that name, you do need to verify the birthday, because we do have multiple clients who have the same name. That is not uncommon, right? So that's why we have that's why verifying people's ID is so important, and making sure that you know who it is that you're working with, and just the system can't prevent everything, right? So at some point we really do need to make sure that we're entering that information correctly and that we are paying attention to name and birthday. So so you're absolutely right. Paying attention to those details is really key. And also I just mentioned also, if a client does apply online, they will also be referred to an agency. In all cases, they are required to choose an agency. So there's not going to be people floating out there in the system who have applied online and not been referred to any agency.
Okay, and just to clarify one last question. If, let's say, a customer applies through your online platform and they select Goodwill, us as Central Coast Energy Services would not be able to complete that referral in the system, correct? Only a representative from Goodwill would be able to issue benefit.
Correct.
And there's no duplication check on the place of service address. On the dwelling address, there's no check there.
There isn't. So that's something that we are gonna have to really pay close attention to. And that's going to be kind of on our end, on United Way Monterey County's end. We're going to be pulling these reports pretty regularly and checking for duplications. Sometimes it takes weeks for a payment to be issued, and we're going to try to catch that kind of duplicate before payment occurs. So that's another thing. That's why it's really important that you that referrals, if you are helping a client that it has not been referred to you from 211 or from the online application, that you are entering them in the system, because we're going to be pulling those reports and we're going to be verifying that there aren't duplicate addresses, that two people from the same household aren't applying to two different agencies, to try to prevent that type of fraud from occurring. So it is really important that if you're helping a client that you enter them in the system, or and that they're not you know, being left out of the system.
Right, and I promise this is definitely my last comment. After, at the point that you're running your reports, at that point, it's already too late, right? For a place of address duplication check, because that person could have already been assisted. The agency, Central Coast Energy Services, is issuing the payment to the customer, correct? The payment is not being issued by the United Way.
Right.
Right.
But what I mean is, like, during the collection of documentation, during that time, the client, we really urge you that the client's already in the system at that point, because then we are able to check for duplicate addresses, right? So there's a period of time between when the client is taken in and when the client's paid. And that's the period of time that the client really does need to be in the system, because it will help us prevent those kind of cases. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess we could take this offline, but you know, if you're collecting, if the field, I saw there you had a field for a check number. So at the point that we're having to enter a check number, that means there's already one has already been issued. But you know, we can go over the details offline if anybody else has comments or questions.
Yeah, and I will say something about check numbers. You're right about that. The check has already been issued, but you don't, I guess what I'm saying here is, like, when the client is in the system, they have not necessarily been marked as paid yet, right? They've just been taken in and taken the survey and deemed eligible. Once they're eligible, they're in the system, but they're not marked as paid yet. So you haven't put in the payment information, the check number, any of that. At that point, we can still go through and check for duplicate addresses. So what we don't want is for you as agencies to be paying people all month and then only at the end, the last week of the month, entering everything in SRN, because that's the case when we're not going to be able to catch duplicates. We would rather, like, and it's going to be easier for you as well if you're entering the clients, those that you're not getting referrals for, that is, into the system as you're going. And that way we can understand, you know, these are the clients that are being helped right now by Central Coast Energy Services. They're collecting documentation for these clients. And one of them here, you know, has the same address as someone who's being helped by Goodwill. And at that point, we can prevent the fraud from happening, if it is in fact a fraud situation. But oh my gosh, it's 2:38. I'm so sorry. But yeah,
just to be clear, we're not issuing payments to the customers, right? We're issuing payments to the landlords and the utility companies.
Yes.
Just that's an important distinction.
Yes.
In most cases. Okay, well, thanks everybody. I know this was a ton, and you know, we're going to be working with you as you go through it, and don't hesitate to contact us and you know, ask any questions and troubleshoot.
Thank you so much.
I will send a copy of the slide, the presentation, as soon as it's done.
And with that, we can also send the packet of materials that I mentioned with the forms and everything. All right. Bye, everyone.